Children held in crowded conditions at the border, a push for solutions as the pictures go public.
Because once the kids come over here, we got to take care of them.
Texas lawmakers also demanding action.
We're being overrun. So this is not a Democrat or Republican thing right now.
How leaders in Texas are shaping the response to the crisis on the border. Texas makes all adults eligible for a COVID vaccine.
Knowing that I finally get to do that is really exciting.
But what about people already struggling to get an appointment? How the state's new plan aims to help.
We stand together to say enough is enough.
Lawmakers hear new calls for police reform, but one key part of the bill has officers pushing back. Hi there, and thanks for joining us. I'm Wes Rappaport in for Josh Hinkle. Last week, we told you about growing concerns over conditions for children being held in Customs and Border Protection detention facilities. But few people knew what it actually looked like inside places like this facility in Donna in Hidalgo County. The administration would not let cameras inside, citing pandemic and privacy concerns. But on Monday, Texas Congressman Henry Cuellar released pictures taken inside the Donna facility. The images show migrant children and teenagers being held in overcrowded conditions. The pictures were similar to images from 2019 that sparked outrage over how the Trump administration handled children who came across the border. Cuellar is a Democrat. He said he released the photos in part because the Biden administration has refused media access to this location. The day after Cuellar sent out those pictures, the Biden administration released its own video from inside this Donna facility. The video shows children sleeping on mats on floors with Mylar blankets to stay warm. Other shots show play areas set up for younger children. The video also shows children wearing masks receiving health scans upon arrival at the facility. On Wednesday, Cuellar was one of 5 members of Congress invited to join a delegation of White House officials and reporters to visit a facility at Carrizo Springs. It's the first time media was allowed inside a facility since the most recent border surge began. The Department of Health and Human Services runs this facility. Video inside showed children playing soccer and basketball. The facility has classrooms and a medical clinic. The delegation also saw stacks of new clothes and personal hygiene supplies being distributed to children as they arrive. Cuellar was pleased with what he saw, but says it only addresses part of the challenge.
They got health care, they got legal services, they got education, they got a place to sleep, a place to take a shower, a place to play around. And I want to thank the Biden administration for providing this type of facility, because once the kids come over here, we got to take care of them. We're only looking at the final stages of where the kids are at. You know, the next step is find their sponsors or their family members, but we also need to look at the steps before they get here.
More than 100 children currently in the facility tested positive for coronavirus and are being isolated. HHS added that no child will be released from the facility until they have 2 negative COVID-19 tests. The Biden administration vowed to work to improve transparency at border facilities, but some Republicans say they're not doing enough. Texas Senators John Cornyn and Ted Cruz led a delegation of Republican senators to the Rio Grande Valley. They criticized the Biden administration policies that they say encourage the influx of people trying to cross the border.
The Border Patrol and Health and Human Services, all the government officials tell us they are doing the best they can, but they're being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. And the smugglers and the cartels are doing this on purpose because they know getting paid by the head for as many people as they can get into the country, covering Border Patrol up with children to take care of, taking them off the front line presents an opportunity for them to smuggle drugs, methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl into the United States. But here's the bottom line. The Border Patrol and Health and Human Services and the non-governmental organizations that are struggling to deal with this flood of humanity tell us they cannot get ahead of this flood of humanity without policy changes in Washington.
State lawmakers are also weighing in on the developments at the border. On Monday, 6 Republican state senators visited the border. They toured the Carrizo Springs facility and took a helicopter tour of the Rio Grande area with the Texas Department of Public Safety. State Senator Lois Kolkhorst was one of the members on this tour. The Brenham Republican chairs the Health and Human Services Committee. I spoke with the senator about what she saw and what she sees as the state's role moving forward. As a state lawmaker, what should the state be doing moving forward to invest or help this situation?
Well, we have made substantial investments last session, $1.3 billion, and the U.S. Border Patrol thanked us over and over again on the investment because we are assistance. But as you know, the Constitution does not allow states to enforce border laws. And so we have to work with our federal partners. Again, there has to be messaging back to those countries that this is not an open border. We have to change the policies. I think the Stay in Mexico policy is a strong policy. At this pace, we will have, at this pace currently, somewhere between 2 and 4 million people cross the Texas border. That is a startling number.
And that has an impact on the state of Texas, regardless of if it's a federal issue. So I guess to follow up on that, what more can Texas do aside from a financial investment to address this?
Yeah, one of the things that we did do when the cartels were moving so many people over here, we lined up our black and whites, next to each other and showed a force. And we may have to do that at one point to show that we are not going to allow the cartels and others just to move in and take over the southern border. I know that I'm hearing from people down there saying, help us, we're being overrun. So this is not a Democrat or Republican thing right now. These are real stories with real problems.
On the pandemic response, what did we learn with this pandemic that we're in, and what are you pushing for to ensure, as chair of Health and Human Services, to make sure that we're better prepared for the next one?
Yeah, and Senate Bill 25 that I passed off the Senate floor, one of the very first bills that passed the Senate is the essential caregiver bill that is going to allow families to appoint an essential caregiver so that we never ever lock away our elderly or our most fragile, that includes some of our IDD population, ever again. So that was my first start. We're not going to do that anymore. We're going to also pass some bills, hopefully with the help of my colleagues, that give some checks and balances to input from the legislative body, because many times we are the closest people to the district, right? We're in our districts, we know what the people are saying. I, for one, believe that the lockdowns were not the wisest thing that we've ever done. We've seen such mental health issues from it. The medical world tells me that, the long term, 5-10 years from now, we may see many more deaths from missing screening for cancer and long-term effects of lockdowns. So hopefully we've learned that we're not going to be doing that in the future, and that we can mitigate these viruses in other ways. Plus, I want to say that the research and development on the work that we've done on SARS-CoV-2 with the vaccine and the therapeutics are going to pay large dividends, and I mean health dividends in the future, because the original SARS and the original MERS were so lethal that they killed their host, so it never became a pandemic, really. And this one was not nearly as lethal as we're going to eventually see, but it was very contagious. And so we never completed our research back then because it played out. This time it forced us to really do great research that will be ongoing for years to come.
I spoke at length with Senator Kolkhorst about the border as well as the future of COVID-related legislation this session. You can see our full conversation online now. Just look for the link in the Texas Politics section of our station's website. The stage was set for a battle over a bill to put new restrictions on Texas voters, but the public debate never happened. How a lunch break shut down a high-profile hearing at the Capitol. As Texas expands eligibility for the COVID vaccine, a lot of Texans still can't get an appointment. What the state's doing now to help people who need the vaccine. Social justice activists push lawmakers to pass police reform bills.
If you vote against this act, you vote against decency and humanity, and you don't deserve to represent Texas or anyone else in America.
But there's also pressure from police, why they're trying to block one key part of the George Floyd Act.